All right, here we are. Okay, great. Well, if you're joining, you must have some interest in business finance because that's what this masterclass is about. Or if you just accidentally happen to show up today, and maybe it's God bringing you here to learn something about business finance, maybe to help you to prosper and to grow your company, or to help yourself expand, or whatever the case may be. I'm glad you're here. And I'm going to get into the content today. This is about building a multi-million dollar family business, which is what I've done with my wife over the past 11 years. Well, okay, total of 16 years. We've been married for 16 years. We started out at a freelance organization, and we moved very quickly into, after a few years of building, we moved very quickly into scaling that company straight up out of a card table in our living room to a multi-million dollar organization. So I'm talking about the finances today. And I think this is one of the biggest opportunities where entrepreneurs have to do better in our businesses and make our businesses better and more peaceful. And so this is a subject that's very important, near and dear to my own heart, and something that I mean, I've spent years and years studying and working with, and of course, in the management, I was a previous CFO at a different company called Golden Rule Air Conditioning and Heating in San Antonio, Texas. And then after that, transferred to CEO of this organization. And my wife is now actually the CFO of our company. And so, as I share this content today, I really hope that you get some valuable insight as to how the inner workings, how to view uh, small business finance, and maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that so many people encounter when we're dealing with the business finance. And so this is finance for entrepreneurs, because most businesses don't fail because of bad ideas. Entrepreneurs are such that we have a million ideas a second, and some are great ideas, and some are the worst possible ideas that we could possibly try to implement. And lack of ideas for an organization, especially entrepreneurs, is not the problem. Businesses fail because they lose control of their cash. They either lose control of their cash, or they don't understand what's going on with it, why there's not enough in the bank, where it's going, and they completely are out of control, and they spiral downward so fast that they don't realize it. They introduce risk factors into their environment, not knowing how heavy those risks are that play into the actual inner workings of the small business. And then those risk factors that they inherit into the organization, whether or not they realize it, have the impact over time that cause the enterprise's demise. And so what I'm hoping to do today is really just to open up to you and maybe share with you some of the very important characteristics or pieces of wisdom that you have to be able to have on your side to be able to apply to your small business. So if you don't know who I am, I think I introduced myself. My name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations. And if you would please like or subscribe, and hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section. If you have a question anytime throughout this live today, then make sure you go ahead and drop that in the chat, and Karina will make sure that I see it. If you have a comment or anything like that, we'd be more than happy to answer that during the live or afterwards. Of course, if you're seeing this after the fact, we read every one of the comments, and we make sure to answer them. So like us, follow us, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get to it. Who is this for? This is for entrepreneurs, founders, or solopreneurs. If you're not any of those, if you're not a small business owner in any of those categories, probably not for you. So if you hate accounting, this is also for you. I'm that kind of guy. I really don't like accounting that much. I enjoy finance and working on finance stuff, but I really don't like accounting. Go figure, right? The founder money problem. So many of us don't get this. I've encountered so many business owners, so many small business owners, and they make this mistake time and time and time again. Revenue does not equal cash. Okay? It does not equal to cash. Revenue does not equal cash, and profit does not equal safety. You can look successful and still go broke. There are lots and lots of companies. I met with an organization, just a case in point. They were selling, they had a clothing store, and they looked very successful. The guy owned the BMW. I mean, they had their ads campaigns set up, and they were cranking on Google AdWords, and they were shipping stuff and making stuff and selling stuff all over the place. But I just so happened he was my friend, and we met him one evening. We were in a cafe. My wife and I were out on a date, and him and his wife were out kind of discussing the business, trying to figure out what to do, and they just so happened to meet us out there. And so I just asked him, I knew he was in business, so I was like, how's business? How are things going? And they started to share, and they started to share a little more, and soon to find out that over the next about 4 or 5 months, we helped them work through completely revising their finances. And actually, for their situation, they had to end up closing the business because they were either going to close the business or go completely bankrupt. And going bankrupt would be very negative for their lifestyle and what they were doing. And so that was not an option. And so we had to help them through navigate that very tough situation. But the problem was they took too much of a debt load on in the front of their business. They didn't know how much profit they actually had. They didn't save money for taxes. And boom, their business very quickly went under. Even though, as a whole, the operation was profitable. The operation could have been very, very profitable if it wouldn't been for the negative factors that caused their demise. So many times they said, "Well, we had a sales this month of $60,000. Our revenue was $60,000 bucks, and on all of our spreadsheets and our Excel sheets and etc., we have like a 60% profit rating." Excuse me. And the problem is that revenue doesn't equal cash. The cash that you see doesn't mean that that is how much you have to work with. And the profit that you think you have might not be the profit that you actually have if you haven't calculated it correctly. And so these numbers are often very skewed, and founders and entrepreneurs, we don't understand them well enough. And when we don't understand what these are, it causes us to start tripping up in ways that we don't even realize we're tripping up in. So you can look successful and you can still go broke. Here's the three numbers that every founder must know consistently. Every CFO, if you're a CFO of a small business, you have to know these numbers all the time: cash on hand, monthly burn rate, and monthly profit or loss. That's what you have to know. These three numbers every week after week after week. Of course, I said monthly profit and loss. You're going to get those numbers monthly. But if you don't know these numbers and you don't have clarity around exactly whether these numbers are accurate, you're just guessing. And there have been periods early on in our company where we were guessing too. And we're no longer guessing because we know the cold hard facts. There is a principle that if you face the facts, the cold, hard facts, no matter how dismal they may be, and make the right next decision based on a logical outcome, logical outworking that would be most likely to happen if you took the right next step, you will keep yourself from failing time and time again. It's called the Stockdale principle, but basically face the brutal facts of reality. If they don't look good, stare them in the face, look them down, and make the right next step. You have to know cash on hand, monthly burn rate, and profit and loss. If you don't know these three numbers, you are shooting in the dark. Now, cash versus profit redone. Profit on paper does not equal cash in the bank. For example, just like I was talking about earlier, the guy who had a business and they sold clothing, they sold these sports suits, and they would sell this whole set of suits of sport, the hat, the blouse, and the pants for like, I don't know, $180. And so they sold this big amount. Example, $10,000 you sold. You received a down payment of $3,000. But the bills that you have to pay right now are $6,000. Well, you made a sale of 10,000. The money's coming eventually, but you have to pay $6,000 now. But you only received 3,000. Where do you get the extra 3,000 from? If you don't have it from the client, or you're just stealing it from all the other deals that you're doing to pay for this one, you're going to go out of business. This is how profitable businesses die. You can't do this again and again and again over a long period of time and hope to prosper. You will not prosper. In this case, you need to make sure you get the full how much you need to pay right now, bills due now, of $6,000 in your account so that you can cover those expenses, and then you have a little bit of leeway to wait for the profit. But if you are not charging up front for that cost that you have to incur in order to be able to carry that burden forward, to carry that sale through, you're going to set yourself up for failure time and time again. And if you do this, it's nobody's fault but your own. I've been there, I've done that. I got the t-shirt and corrected myself and scaled much, much further. But this is how profitable businesses die each and every day. I've seen so many small businesses die because they didn't understand this concept. They started, well, we're making a lot of sales, but the money's not coming in. The payments are late. You'd be amazed by how many clients, when you're not paying attention, don't pay their final bill. They just don't pay. They forgot about it. They went on vacation. They took a break. Who knows what happened? They got sick, or they went to a wedding. I've heard every excuse in the book for clients when they're, oh, I'm so sorry, we didn't cover that invoice. You're like, I can't breathe here. And so if you're not understanding this and making sure that your bill, that the amount that you have to pay for the thing that you just sold are all covered, then you're going to run into cash flow problems, a liquidity problem. You're not going to have any money in your bank. If you have profit on paper but no cash in the bank, you're going to have trouble. All right. So this is a simple founder dashboard or entrepreneur dashboard or small business owner dashboard that you need to have every single week. And I want to very much stress the every single week. If this is not happening every single week, you're going to lose track of where you're going. You're going to lose control of the finances. And anytime finances are out of control, you're going to lose money. Either you're going to spend inefficiently, or you're going to not track, or somebody's not going to pay and you're not going to know about it. You're going to come back 6 months later and say, hey, that guy didn't pay a $5,000 bill. Oh, hey, I need you to pay this $5,000 bill. Well, they have gone and forgot about that by now. And now it's going to take even longer to get the money out of them because they might have to save up for whatever it is that they have to pay. I know it sucks, but I've seen it 1,000 times if I've seen it one time. So listen, get the cash balances, the unpaid invoices, weekly expenses. What are the expenses for the week? And the sales pipeline. These numbers, you have to see them every single week. Honestly, in addition to this, I mandate that all of the business activities that we take the taxes out immediately as the money comes into the account. So in addition to the Simple Founder dashboard that we do every single week here, we have a line item in there that says, okay, taxes. And that is a percentage of the total amount of revenue coming in that week. And so many people say, well, should it be this or should it be that? Should it be the other? It's around 10 to 15% depending on your company. Okay. So I don't know what company you operate. I don't know what the revenue is for your organization, but if you take the entire sale, not just like a percentage of the sale, but for example, in the previous slide, we saw the $10,000 sale. So take $10,000. What is the percentage of that? Okay, that's $10,000. You're taking 10% of that, and that gets set aside for taxes. And then you save that in account for your quarterly taxes. Okay. So maybe it's 15%. You do the calculation for you. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not giving you a tax advice. But the point is, you have to save that from every dollar that comes in before you actually get to the point where it's like, well, we have to make this payment and now we don't have any money for it. Now what do we do? Okay. So cash balances, unpaid invoices, weekly expenses, and the sales pipeline. These numbers have to be clear. They have to be accurate, and you have to see them weekly. Now, I've seen so many people say, well, I can see these numbers weekly. Really? And then we got to look into their finances because they come to and they say, well, I'm still having trouble with the finances in our business and I don't know what to do. And we say, okay, well, if you're having trouble with the finances, are you viewing these numbers? Yeah, we're viewing all of those numbers weekly. Okay, well, if you're viewing all of those numbers, then something must be wrong with the numbers, because you should not be in this situation if you're making logical decisions based on these numbers week after week after week. So we dig into the numbers, come to find out the accounting has been done sloppily. The books, the information hasn't been input the way it was supposed to. they don't really know how to put the information in there like they were supposed to. Nobody really, they're kind of doing it on Excel and they're just getting a estimate and it's not really accurate. That, my friends, is a recipe for disaster and it's going to cause your business to crumble. So, the cash balances, the unpaid invoices, the weekly expenses, and the sales pipeline, these have to be accurate numbers for you. You have to know them and assess them weekly so that you can look forward and work towards total clarity. Setting the taxes aside from every single, I call it piece of money that comes in the door. If it's $1, we put 10 cents off of that sale over here in the tax account, and that gets saved for the estimated taxes, the quarterly estimated taxes. Now, cheap prices equal future problems. The value always outweighs the hours you invest. If you underprice, you are allowing for hidden debt to accumulate year after year after year. Underpricing is not an option. Okay. If you're just going to put out the lowest price, a multi-million dollar organization was talking with, or consulting with them the other day, and they were talking about on one of their biggest contracts how they were just bleeding cash because they were the lowest price vendor when they came in the door and they got the contract, but they weren't making any profit. They were losing money. To fulfill the contract, they were losing money. And so they had to stop servicing that contract, basically saying, okay, this was a government contract. We're saying we're going to stop this contract so that we don't bleed any more of our cash, which is obviously the right thing to do. But you never want to be in the situation where you're so underpriced what you're doing that you can't deliver your product. That's only going to create a stink around your brand in the marketplace. And the next time you go to bid on something or try to get a contract and you're dealing with the same office, guess who's not going to get it? You, because your price was too low and you didn't understand the numbers as you were submitting your bid. Now, I'm not saying that you have to price yourself high. And obviously, the market forces everyone in every industry to be very competitive. But if you're going to think that we just charge cheaper prices than everybody else and you're still going to be able to win, you're just setting yourself up for problems later. Okay, coming in lower and then working your way up is fine, but not just crazy low to where you're losing money right as you start. Okay, so always remember that you must be paid as a founder. All right, so what should you spend money on at the beginning? These are the items that you should focus on, that you should spend money on, that you should protect your time with and your investment with and everything that you're doing with all your focus. Sales. So many people don't spend enough time on sales and they complain about their sales. If you're complaining about your sales and yet you're not spending time creating the content around your brand, helping people understand what it is that you sell, and actually reaching out to talk to real people every single day, and you haven't set up systems in your organization every single day to make sales happen, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. So many entrepreneurs are out there like, well, I don't have any sales at all and I don't know what to do. Well, you should probably market and create and do some sales. Well, I don't know how to do it. Well, how do you think you're going to get sales? Well, I built a website, a Facebook page, a TikTok page, and a YouTube page. And now I'm just not getting any sales. Well, the reason you're not getting sales is because you aren't going out and selling. So, how does that look? You have to contact real people who have the real need for your product and deliver it to them. Well, how do I do that? I don't know. It's your product. I know how we do it for us. I don't know how you do it for you. But basically, it boils down to finding who you're selling to, creating a customer persona, right down to their age, their gender, and all of their preferences, figuring out where they hang out, and then showing up where they hang out and selling your stuff to them. And so, I mean, you might have, if you have a product that sells to 18-year-old people, you probably want to be on a lot of social media stuff. If you have a product who sells to 60-year-old people, you probably want to be on Facebook. Facebook, you're like, well, Facebook is it used to be new, but now it's getting old. There's like lots and lots of grandmothers and boomers that are using it. So, sales, customers, and core tools. That's what you should spend your money on at the beginning when you're building your company. You spend to grow or protect. You never spend to impress. Never, ever, ever spend to impress when you're building your organization. only spend to grow or protect. The founder pay reality. Too many founders start a business and they don't get paid. 3 years, 4 years into this thing, still not getting paid. And you're like, how are you even surviving? Well, I take the minimum amount of money that I possibly need from the business when I need it. And you're not getting a paycheck? No, because I reinvest all the money back into the business. You will burn yourself out if you do not pay yourself. So in small business finance, you have to separate amount of money every week. I don't care what it is, but you have to pay yourself a salary from the business so that you don't take out money that the business actually needed. And you just keep that money, that consistent amount of money coming to you, and when appropriate and when you're profitable, increase your salary. And by the way, in small business, sometimes the money goes up, the cash flow goes up, and you have great years, and sometimes it goes down. And you have to be able to be prepared for that. Chaos in this area equals stress. And chaos means, well, I only take a little money out whenever I absolutely have to have it. That's chaotic. You never know when you're going to take the money out or when you actually have to have it because life happens without a plan and you have no plan. And then the money goes that could have been spent for marketing or AdWords campaigns or making editing the YouTube videos or whatever it was. And now you don't have anything left over because you had these little emergencies here and there and caused these chaotic expenses to happen to your business. And you look back and like, man, why don't I have any money? Well, you don't have any money because you're trying to be have this false sense of humility about running the business. Like I'm going to sacrifice everything to make this work. In fact, you're forcing everyone to have a high chance of failure because you haven't decided to plan. And you're just like, well, I'm too afraid to cut a salary out of the business because what if the business can't sustain it? Well, if the business can't sustain it over a really long time, then it's not a viable business and you need to change the model or make more sales. That's the only two options. So get after it. A business that can't pay the I'm getting tongue tied here. A business that cannot pay the founder is unsustainable. So if you have a business, make sure that you separate a salary for yourself every single week and don't touch the rest of the money because that money, that liquid is the lifeblood of the organization. And if you're operating your company and you're not and you're just stealing money from the organization whenever you need it, then you're going to cause the chaotic stress that nobody else needs. And all of those expenses are going to come at a time that are just going to hurt you and not lift you. So the cash is there to work. The money in the accounts is there to work. It either pays vendors, it goes for taxes to keep you safe from the government, or it goes for advertising and marketing, or it goes to a dividend. Whatever it is, whatever cash is there, it has a job to do. And if you have not assigned work to every single one of those dollars, whether that's paying the owner or investing in another campaign, whether it's any kind of expense, you are not correctly managing the business finances. So every dollar that's in your account has to have a job. Otherwise, it's not doing its purpose. Scaling without killing cash. All right. So if you're going to bring team members on, this is in reference to hiring and bringing people on. This is sometimes this is so strange to me. I've encountered businesses that have zero cash buffer, or even worse. Well, I take the money that we would save for taxes and I put it over in here in an account, and in the event we have an emergency, I use that money. I'm like, did you just hear yourself say that? Because if you just heard yourself say that, it means you're about to use your tax money for emergencies. Well, what happens when the tax guy comes after you? Because they're going to come after you. And I don't know how many times I've had that conversation with people. They're like, well, I mean, it's just a big pile of money that sits there. It's tax money and it doesn't belong to you. I hate taxes more than anybody else, but that money has to sit there. It is not an emergency fund. So 3 to 6 months of operating capital has to be in your bank account, has to be available to you in order for you to be in a place where you can weather the storms of business. If you're not there yet, That means once you make money, you pay the owner, you separate your taxes, you pay all the other business expenses, and any other money goes to making that fund. Well, I wanted to go on vacation. You don't go on vacation. You don't buy a new truck. You don't know buy a new Honda minivan. You save money for the 3 to 6 months emergency fund, depending on how volatile your industry is and how risky it is in the areas of intuition and disruption. Okay. This creates revenue stability. And when things go up and they go down, and they're going to go up and they're going to go down, believe me, if you're operating a small business, it's going to happen. I guarantee it. I've been in small business for the past 25 years, and all the time in every business, revenue goes up and it comes back down, and it goes up and it's fun, and it goes back down, and it goes up, and hopefully it's always kind of up and to the right. But sometimes it kind of feels like it's just going down. To avoid to avoid failing or having to shut down or going bankrupt in those scenarios, you have to have the 3 to 6 months of cash buffer. And that has to be the goal. Like, and when you first open a company and you've made your first profit and it's actually pure clean profit from the organization, like, man, this is so exciting. I have this money that people actually like, you feel so good because like people actually thank me for the work and it's called profit. Yes, that is great. But it has a job to do. First of all, pay your taxes. Second of all, pay your owner. Third of all, make sure you're aligned with the goals and needs of the organization and what the very next step is for you to accomplish. Is it saving enough money for a capital fund in the organization? Is it saving enough money for you to have? Is it saving up for the 3 to 6 buffer? Is it allocating budgets to different departments in the organization? Production for implementation of AI, or accounting for the hiring of a new bookkeeper, or maybe it needs to go to marketing for the launching of AdWord campaigns or other tools that the entity needs. There are always business expenses that are ready, that are strategic needs for the organization, ready to be put money into, and that will help you scale your business upwards. And if you don't realize that, and because you're not paying the owner and you're not dividing the money out for taxes, and you're not identifying the very next thing it is that you need to purchase or save money for example, the emergency fund, then you're going to cause your organization a strategic failure because you haven't managed the finances well. And this is a never-ending battle. This is a cycle that never ever ends. Your team, your finance team will work week after week after week on this issue and around this issue. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to deal with you. And when it deals with you, you're going to have not revenue stability, but revenue instability. And that's not what any of us want. So growth without cash is risk. So don't hire before you have the money to hire. Well, don't hire. Well, I'm just real tired. Well, just because you're tired doesn't mean you have the money to hire. You have to make sure you're profitable so you have the money to hire. Because if you hire too early, you're going to be firing some people because you don't have the money to pay them. So make sure you have enough money to handle a 3 to 6 months challenge that you're going to face at some time in the future. There's the old saying that says every 7 to 8 years you're going to have a major financial or personal or business catastrophe happen in your life. Now I'm not prophesying any bad situations in anybody's life. That's what I'm talking about. But inevitably, suffering in this human experience will happen. That's what it means. And if you act as if it will never happen to you, which is most of the time what the case is, when we look at business finances and we have these pink glasses, then you're not prepared for when the storm comes. And this is you being prepared for when the storm eventually does come. And it will come, and it happens every so often. And honestly, in business, the biggest reward for solving big and hairy and hard challenges is bigger, hairier, harder challenges to solve. And as you do that, you get to scale upwards. All right. So the next 90 days, as you look forward for your organization, you need to have a best and a worst case scenario. In the best case scenario, if this happens, where does the money go? In the worst case scenario, if that doesn't happen and only this happens, what what are the bills that have to be paid and all of the things that we have to cover. You have to know this, and this helps you to understand whether or not over the next 90 days you're going to be okay. Visibility beats perfection. It's not that it has to be perfect. It's not that have it's not that you have to know exactly what's going to happen because none of us can tell the future. I predicted what's going on in the next 90 days for our organization many times and it didn't happen. Sometimes we vastly blew through the marker. Sometimes we didn't even come close. And so nobody knows what's going to happen, but you have to look forward those next 90 days in your finances and say, okay, we're here right now. We want to get there. And what are the tools? What are the investments? Maybe how do we make sure that we have the tax money available now? Because now we're going to make our quarterly payments on time. How do we make sure that we have the tax money available 90 days from now? Because these are quarterly payments and we have to make them every quarter. And I know there's that weird thing where the dates kind of don't match up. I think it's like the September or it's like the January one. I can't remember which one it is, but CFO thinks about that stuff for us. But anyways, um, in any case, you have to look forward to 90 days and realize, okay, what's the next thing that the organization requires me to know and to place our money in, to invest in, so that we are giving ourselves the best possible chance of prospering. Because if you don't do that and you just do willy nilly about your finances, then they're going to be willy nilly all over the place. Now, I've already talked about this a couple times, and I know I just want to make sure you get this because the entrepreneurs that I talk to, this is the biggest area that they screw up. They don't calculate the taxes from their sales. And when you don't do this, or they think that taxes, I'll save for the taxes later, or I'll come up with a plan when the estimated taxes are due, or I just won't pay them altogether ever for the whole year, and then at the end of the year I'll be penalized and have to pay the taxes because at that point I'll have more profit because the year will be closed out. We'll do the reconciliation, and it's like, no, save the money for the taxes as the money comes in. This is the way that you keep yourself from all of that pain. There are more companies that are in tax debt and that struggle because of their tax debt than almost any other area because they weren't planning and they haven't taken the time to make sure that they're investing their money in the right places at the right times or allocating it in the right place at the right time. I'm not saying tax is an investment. It's not an investment. It's a straight off loss. It's just the price you pay for doing business. So you save as you earn. If there's just one thing you can remember, if you're getting into business or business finance, save money as you earn. Don't simply start to put money. Don't say taxes will come later. They will never come later. They will always be imminent, and you always have to pay them. And they're due every quarter. So just save money. Save money anyways. Now, if you're less profitable, you could kind of know. So at the beginning, if you're growing your company and you don't have much profit to deal with, you might not have a lot of taxes to pay. And that's fine. But you need to know so that if you have to pay the taxes, you got the money. And I recommend 10 to 15% straight off the top from every piece of money, like I talked about earlier in the video, that comes into your account. So here's some common founder mistakes. We look at all kind of numbers, but we avoid the most important ones. Or because they're scary and we're not, and this is something that I think so many entrepreneurs, we're very aspirational. We're very self-motivated. We're very, pie in the sky, like it's going to be great, optimistic. And when you have to deal with cold, hard facts, sometimes you feel like they're going to drag you down and kill your optimism. Well, sometimes they kind of need, it's like some people actually need to be dragged out of the clouds. Like you guys are wishing upon a star and that star ain't hanging. It's not there. So you have to realize that the finance area of your business is the factor that matters most in helping you understand if you are winning. It is your metric. And if you avoid the numbers, you're going to avoid the numbers until you fail. So if you do that, and you do underpricing and you grow your ego before you actually grow your cash, you're going to create repeated mistakes, and mistakes that happen again and again and again over time ultimately weigh down, increase risk on the organization, and cause it to tank. When this happens, there may be no way to to turn back. You may be too far gone, just like the company I mentioned earlier. We worked through his finances and we understood. We tried this, tried to nudge that, manipulate that, put this here, rearrange things. And the end, the ultimatum was clear. We have to close the business. Why? Because we didn't make the right decisions very long ago that caused us to be in the current situation. And now we can no longer go forwards because we just can't breathe. There's no cash. We took too much money from too many people and didn't pay our taxes on time. And now we're up a tree or up a creek without a paddle. So cash gives you time, and time gives you options. The reason you save money and that you intentionally put your money in your 3 to 6 months savings fund first, and you gather that money and you pile it up, is because that saves you time. That gives you time to deal with whatever it is that you're going to face. When you encounter something that's tough, an innovation, a big change in the marketplace, AI, new tools that do your work 10 times faster, you have to invest in them and learn how to use them so that you can actually compete in the marketplace. Or the contracting vehicles have changed, or the portals, or half of Doge. They ripped out billions and billions of dollars of government contracts, and now all of those contracts are being remade right now, and you have to weather that entire storm. It's a roller coaster that you have to be prepared for. And if you're not prepared for it, you're gonna go out of business. And if you go out of business, somebody's gonna step right in your place and keep on going forwards. And if you're not prepared for that, you're not prepared for them to come in or to weather that storm, and you can't stand the test of time, it's only your fault. It's nobody else's. Nobody else did that to you. You weren't focused at the right time, and you didn't focus on the right thing, and I didn't focus on the right thing, and it caused us to struggle. So, cash equals time. Always remember that. It's not a lost investment when you have 3 to 6 months emergency fund. I do recommend putting it in some kind of a high yield savings account or something like that. But it's not a lost investment. It does keep you safe when the going gets tough. That's why having a big pile of cash ready for those types of emergencies is always important. And sometimes you have to use it. And when you have to use some of it, just use it and don't feel guilty about it. Just do it and carry on. Because if you can make the right next decision based on the data, the brutal facts of reality today, and charge forwards, you have the greatest opportunity to succeed. That gives you time, which when you have time to make decisions, you can make better decisions. When you're forced to make decisions because you can't breathe because there's zero cash anywhere, well, you don't have any time and you don't have any options. So always remember that there has to be a priority in dealing with your money. First, when the money comes in, separate the taxes, pay the owners, pay all the expenses, and set the money aside to build up your capital reserve funds so that you actually have money when the going gets tough. Thank you so much for joining this masterclass today. I know this is very short, and I wanted to make it short because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't too boring. Finance can often be unbelievably boring, and I know there's probably a ton of questions. And if you have those questions, I want to answer them for you. So drop them in the chat and let me know what those questions are, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. Thank you for joining with us today. I hope that you got something very valuable out of the content today. And if you have any questions at all, please put them in so that Karina can get them up and let us know about them. All right. If you're joining me here on TikTok, please let me know if you have a question. I'm more than happy to answer it right now. Otherwise, I'll be getting off here in just a little bit.